Les quiero dar la bienvenida a
Okay,
todos.
without further ado,
Este simposio es
we
un
welcome you to
iniciativo
the symposium. This is an initiative of the Society for the Study of Evolution, which is an international society
a sus miembros
in order to, which works to make to give visibility to its members,
Este primer
which
simposio
is an international and diverse community. This first symposium will be in Spanish and will be directed to the
simposios
Spanish-speaking Latin American community, but we have other symposium which are planned for other months.
también si aún no son
So
miembros de la
please
sociedad, los
check your emails
invitamos a unirse.
because we'll be telling you about those. If you would like to join the society, there is a scheme of either free or 50% off membership schemes for Latin American countries. So
También en el
we
chat vamos a publicar este
you can go and check this information on the website, and we'll also be pasting that into the chat here. And for all the members of the Society for the Study of Evolution who are students, you all have benefit. You can apply for the Rosemary Grant or the Levantin Early Award, which provides funding to complement PhD studies, and you can also apply to international events with funding from the society. We also would like to invite you to, uh, so whenever there is calls for papers, please do apply, because we would like to have as many international people as we can, and we would like you to really recommend. We recommend you to represent the Latin American society, Latin American community in the council of the society, in the advisory council. So I would like to invite Kelly Samudio, who is the president of the Society for Evolution, who will give us some welcoming words, and then we'll start with the first talk by Hugh Drummond. Hi, Henry. Thank you very much. I am Eric Samudio. I am the elected president of the Society for the Evolution. It is a great pleasure to see you all here with more than 500 people who joined, who registered. And so I think that in itself is a huge success. We have plans for other symposia, as Henry told us, in the future, of course, and that will create a very global impact. First of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee. It was the idea of the committee of the graduate students to start with this international symposium. And I would like to start thanking Henry Arenas-Castro for his work in organizing this symposium. The study of evolution is ever more relevant and important. We know that we are at we're times of change, climate change, social change, and changes in the way we apply our community and our knowledge about biodiversity and the natural world. It is a very exciting moment to be an evolutionist biologist, and it is a great moment to share the relevance of our work with the rest of the world. And I can see there are some fantastic talks today. Thank you very much for taking part and for being part of this global network. And I'm really happy to know that our society participated to make this event a success. So I really hope you enjoy the event. So now, Henry, please go ahead. Thank you very much, Kelly. Okay, so I would like to start with the first talk by Hugh Drummond. He is an emeritus professor of the Autonomous University of Mexico. Many years ago, he's been studying parental conflict in a population of blue-footed boobies, and he was one of the co-founders of the Autonomous University of Mexico. So Hugh, please go ahead. Thank you very much, and congratulations to the Society for organizing this event. Okay, so hello to everyone. I would like to start. Can I be removed from the screen? Now, once you share your screen, we won't see you anymore.
Ya está.
Okay, can you see my screen now? Yes. If you can click on the presentation mode and slide mode. Yes, perfect.
Ahora está bien todo.
Okay, so we see everything? Yes, we can.
Entonces, les voy a
Okay,
hablar del tema
so I would like to
de
tell you about competition
unidades y camadas
in the
en estas camadas y unidades, las
in the
primeras
broods of vertebrates. So each offspring, if chick in this case, has a genetic relationship to their
y por eso están en
to the
competencia.
siblings,
La
and
dificultad para entrar las crías
they're devalued by 50%, and that's why they're competing all the time.
y la
And
competencia
this competition can involve aggression and dominance, and it has been in many species. The species here are shown on the screen. In a minority of species, but there are dozens, siblicide occurs, and I am trying to get rid of the. Okay. So the talk will be about the development and evolution of dominance and dominance-subordination systems. So I will talk about two birds, and I will offer a description of their knowledge. I will talk about experiments, and I will talk about monitoring data about these offsprings, about these chicks. These are the two species I will be talking about, the blue-footed booby and the brown booby. The blue-footed booby is the star of this because it's the species that we have studied the most, and we have studied it in this island, in the Mexican Pacific, so 50 kilometers from the coast. This graph shows the dominance, basically. We can see on the left-hand side that during the first 3 to 4 weeks, the first chick, which has an advantage of 3 to 4 weeks, sorry, 3 to 4 days before, increases their aggression and, of course, number of pecks, and then they relax once this dominance has been established. The second chick, which hatches with the same disposition for fighting, cannot compete with an advantage of 4 days, and it can, of course, maintain subordinance. The consequence of the difference in age and agonism in the chicks leads to the fact that the dominant chick eats more than the second chick, both in the first week and in the following weeks. This is the chicks that we have measured. This is the amount of food intake, and the consequence of this is that the growth of the chicks is different. Apart from what we can see here, because this is a sexually dimorphic species, but normally the first chicks grow a lot faster than the second chicks. What happens after 70 days of age? The curves join because finally both chicks end up having the same weight and the same dimensions. Okay, what we can see in this siblicide system and competition system is the amount of food that the parents bring to their chicks. In well-fed, when they're well-fed, the first one eats a lot, but both grow properly, and the second chick ends up being the same size. And in their adult lives, they do not differ in their survival or fitness. In those which are not well fed, the first one will kill the first chick will kill the second chick, not directly, but what will happen is that the second one will die because of not having enough food, and it will try to leave the nest, and then it will be attacked by adults. The key of the difference is of the ones which are well fed and the ones that are not well fed or badly or poorly fed is the difference in the aggression of the dominant chicks in both cases. We tested in an experiment the importance of the amount of food in the and how it relates to the aggressiveness in the first chick, which is the dominant chick. And what we saw in the control cases is that the body weight of the first chick was stable, and the aggression of the first chick was minimal. It was moderate. Whereas in the cases where which were deprived of food, the body weight of the first chick was a lot lower, so it was 75% of what it should have been, and the aggressiveness of the first chick increased in a 500%. So the mechanism to produce the elimination of the second chick has to do, or is directly related to the amount of food that is available. But perhaps what's most important here in this behavior system or in competition of the boobies is the submission or subordinance, this learned submission of the second chick. What we can see here is that the subordinate chick, the second chick in the nest, in the first 3 weeks, increases their submission or submissiveness, in a 75%, which means that at the end of the 3rd week, they're adopting a very submissive posture in response to 95% of the pecks received, and that this is maintained for many days. But it is during the period when the two chicks share the nest, whereas the dominant chick, which also increases in their submissiveness, it's really interesting, this phenomenon. It never never reaches those levels of submissiveness, and it should be remembered that these submissiveness are not very abundant because the first chick receives very few picks. And what this data is showing us is that by following these chicks for about 4 weeks, is that the level of submissiveness depends on the frequency or the rate of attacks received. So the chicks that receive more attacks during the early days show higher levels of submissiveness. We suspect that what is occurring is the process of what psychologists call train, losing, and winning. And in this train, losing and winning, the idea is that having experiences of dominating, attacking, make chicks grow a lot more aggressively. And having an experience of receiving attacks, those chicks will learn to be ever more submissive. And this seems to be very general across many species of vertebrates and invertebrates, but it had not yet been studied in the chicks of any species. And we carried out some experiments to see if that was the case. And as we can see here, we have two subordinates in their natal nests. To see the aggressive interchange or exchange. And what we could see is for half an hour, there was no aggressiveness from either of those two. There was just, they didn't want anything to do with the other chick. Whereas when we have two dominant chicks that in their natal nests that were dominant, we've put them together, there is a fierce battle up to the point where we have to stop the experiment, where we have two chicks, where one is subordinate, one is dominant. Each one behaves in the way we expected that. So this agonistic posture, we could call it the agonistic personalities induced by their experience, and each chick will behave depending or according to their own agonistic experience. One would expect that another variable would be irrelevant, which is the size, the relative size of both chicks, given that in vertebrates, a 10% in the body size is enough to decide which one is dominant. And we again carried out experiments having making experiments with two chicks from two different nests, and we saw that the biggest chick dominated the smaller chick. I think it was in 11 out of 12 pairs of chicks. It was always the bigger one, even if it was not that much in terms of the level of aggression. But these are two variables which control aggressiveness. One is the social experience, and the second one is the relative size. And one might ask, what happens when those two variables contradict in their indications for the chicks? I can't go further anymore. Second. Can't seem to be able to go further in the slides. 1 second.
Perdón por esto, pero
No, está bien.
I apologize for the difficulty. 1 second, please.
mi teclado se ha paralizado por alguna razón.
My keyboard is not working anymore for some reason.
No puedo controlar el PowerPoint.
Tal vez sí
I
intento
can't
cerrar.
seem to be able to control the PowerPoint. Maybe if you close your presentation and then open it again. Meanwhile, I'll be opening the latest version that you shared with me.
Hugh, yo tengo tu charla, yo puedo compartir mi pantalla y tú me dices next slide si quieres.
Ah,
I
okay.
have your slides. If you would like, I can share them, and then you can just tell me next slide, and I'll be.
¿Puedes mirar mi pantalla?
Can you see my screen?
Déjame cerrar esto. Sí, sí, sí.
Entonces
Yes, I
voy
can
a
see it.
ir
Perfect.
a donde estaba. Dímelo cuando quieres que te
Okay, so
pare.
I'll go to where you were, and then you can then tell me when you want me to stop.
Ahí.
Ok, entonces dice next slide y yo cambio para
You
ti.
just tell me, and I'll be changing the slides. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So we're back.
Next slide.
Next slide, please.
Entonces, en este siguiente experimento,
Okay, so in this following experiment,
como controles,
we had as
una
control
dominante en su nido
a
natal, con una cría
dominant chick in their natal nest with a smaller chick, unsubordinate in their own natal nest. And this was the level of aggressiveness or aggression in between the two chicks, which is what we expect in a natural brood. But when we, in an experiment, put together a dominant experimental chick with a bigger chick, the dominant chick would detect this difference in size and would take advantage of that those circumstances, becoming ever more aggressive. But the dominant sibling duplicated the level of aggressiveness to suppress that attempt of a coup from their sibling. And only out of 8 times in this type of experiment could the bigger subordinate sibling manage to become dominant or dominate the sibling. And we did this throughout 8 weeks, and this was a stable situation. So this means that the second chicks do not have the ability to invert dominance, even when they have an advantage up to a 60% of larger body size compared to the dominant sibling. Next, please. And this is the brown booby. And here the rules are very different. The dominance and subordinance relationship is substantially different. Please continue. Next slide. Let's go one back. Okay. So what we can see here is that the first chick, when the second chick is 3 or 4 days old, the first chick will kill the second chick, and this is an obligate siblicide, because the second chick, as soon as they have the capacity, will attack the sibling, and finally kicks this other chick out of the nest. And we end up with a situation of in the drawing where we see the chick at the bottom, the second chick, who has been outcast from the nest, and cannot return, and dies there from predation or from starvation. Okay, next one. So the question is, no, please go back to this previous slide, thank you. So the question is, why does this obligate siblicide happen in all the nests? Half of the females lay 2 eggs, and the fledging of 2 chicks has never been seen. As much as we know, the brown booby can never, the 2 chicks can never survive. However, 50% of the fledglings in the brown booby community derive from the second egg. The study, what we found is didn't actually make it very clear whether the substitution of the first to the second chick happens in the flying stage or the hatching stage. So we don't know if. So yes, in some cases, the second chick ends up being the fledgling of the nest. So that means that the second egg is an insurance policy, whereas in the brown booby, whereas the blue-footed booby is for insurance plus an extra reproductive. So the question which I've been fascinated by for a long time is, why does the second chick need to kill? Why does the first chick need to kill the second chick? Because in doing that, of course, the family is losing several days of their insurance policy, or actually several weeks. So we propose this hypothesis of the hermano desperado, the desperado sibling. Why does it happen? So the first chick thinks that the second chick is uncontrollably dangerous, and the second chick is uncontrollably dangerous because the probability of the two hatchlings fledging is 0. That means the second chick in a nest where parents will be able to feed and make one chick survive, and the second chick, being the youngest and more vulnerable, it knows that their only path to survival is a coup. They have to kill their sibling. So this is the idea behind this. Next slide, please. So the idea is that in the case of the brown booby, since the siblings are uncontrollable, the first chicks kill them as soon as they can. Whereas in the case of the blue-footed booby, since their siblings are so controllable, the first chicks cohabit and share with them in benefit of their own inclusive fitness, which is obtained in case both fledge, or in case the second outlives the first one, the death of the first chick due to the disease or predation. And the prediction, the clear prediction of this desperado sibling hypothesis says that a second chick of the brown booby inserted into the nest of a blue-footed booby, which has only one chick, and older one chick, will be extremely dangerous and uncontrollable. We expect violence from this individual, whereas a blue-footed booby inserted in the same situation, we don't expect the same levels of violence. Next slide, please. And when we created these adoptions, this is what we saw. The second chick of the blue-footed booby, the aggression was very small, whereas with the second chick, with the brown booby, even when it confronted a chick double their size, twice their size, their behavior was extremely aggressive. And this is what we saw after several days of coinhabitants. And after those many days, the second chick keeps on attacking their older sibling. Next slide, please. And in all the nests, we had the situation where the brown booby, after a few weeks together, they managed to push out the blue-footed booby chick, ending up with the blue-footed booby chick out of the nest and the brown booby chick in the nest. So it's a huge difference between the two species. Next slide, please. We could prove the situation in the difference in aggression between the two species, observing natural broods of 2 units of the brown booby, because in the San Martin Island, where we did this experiment, sometimes we have broods of broods of 2 chicks in during several weeks in the week in the island. And we found all these broods and we compare them to the broods of blue-footed boobies. So this is the aggression rates between the subordinate and dominant chicks. In the pairs of chicks of brown boobie, there was always one that was more aggressive, but both were fierce in the peaking, and there was encounters which would last some minutes. They would rest, and then they would go back to attacking each other, and their aggression was very fierce compared to the blue-footed booby. And this implies that even after 2 months, none of the two chicks has learned to be a submissive chick. Next slide, please. Here you have 5 minutes left. Thank you. So I would like to conclude this my conclusion in terms of the tameability, this ability of becoming submissive and subordinate. The tameability is a skill. It is not an unavoidable organic behavior. And if we compare that that's in the brown booby, and if we compare that to the blue-footed booby, which responds with resilience, they are not tameable. So the birds of this genus have the ability of resisting the aggression, and they can do that they can do it in the case of the brown booby, or not do it in the blue-footed booby. I infer that in each species, the behavioral tendencies have evolved in order to adapt them to their ecological and social context, a specific context. And I infer that this tameability of the blue-footed booby is authentic. They do not signal submission due to a strategic decision. They're unable to oppose an aggressor. The subordinates who rebelled when they were placed alongside smaller dominants, they ended up surrendering. They could not handle it. So this to simulate tameability would be evolutionarily unstable. If they allowed coups by bigger subordinates, the unconditional lethal aggression would evolve in dominance. Next one, please. So these are my conclusions. The first chick of the blue-footed booby learns dominance, and the second one learns subordinance. The first one eats more and survives most of the time. When food is scarce, it will kill its sibling, and parents can fledge 1 or 2 chicks depending on the ecological situation. With the brown booby, it's different. The first chick will urgently kill their sibling because it's a desperado. The parents will fledge only 1 chick, and their insurance policy only lasts a few days. In both species, the competitive strategy of the first chick is an evolutionary response to that of the second chick. We always think that who is controlling everyone is the first chick, the dominant chick in birds. But their strategy depends very much on what the other sibling is, or the rival is doing. The tameability of the blue-footed booby is the adaptation which allows the first chick to conditionally tolerate their sibling in order to increase their inclusive fitness and that of their siblings and sibling and parents. And in the last slide, I would like to say that the funding for all this has come from UNAM CONACYT and from a small degree from the Conservation Research Foundation and National Geographic Society, and there have been a large number of collaborators and institutional support. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Hugh. Really interesting your talk. It's impossible not to humanize some of those behaviors and becomes surprised by them. We have a question in the chat. If you would like to ask more questions, you can use the question and answers box, or you can raise your hand and we promote you as panelists to ask the question directly orally. I would like to start with a question from Arenas-Castro. Her question is, if the submission, dominance, and simplicide can be acquired, genetically acquired behaviors in these species. Yes, I suppose that the basis of these behaviors are genetic, because the framework aligns with the expectations of all the theories. But in each individual, this behavior has to evolve depending on their experience. They can be modified at different levels, so their express behavior can change. But we believe that there's a selection, but it comes from the genes of these individuals, of course. Thank you very much. I would like to allow Ana Rosalito Barrios to ask a question, so please unmute your question.
Estamos a promover. ¿Puedes hablar, Ana?
Ok, mientras tanto te formulo una pregunta.
Meanwhile, I'll ask you another question, which is in the chat from Verónica Reyes. My question is, if you have assessed how the fact of being an older or younger sibling, if you have assessed the reproductive success. So females prefer males, aggressive or subordinate males, or whether being female or male has an influence on the tameability. Are there more females that survive, or is it more the aggressive males? What we've seen is that after the fledgling, the difference between subordinates and dominants, it's not really that important. There is no difference. When we measure their size, it is not different, except for the females in their first 3 years of life. It's a bit they're a bit underweight. The weight is a bit lower. During the complete reproductive life, we have monitored them for 17 years. We see that the production of chicks does not differ between subordinate or dominant chicks, except with the exception of the fact that the subordinates in the first 3 years of reproduction, they produce less feasible, less viable chicks. But that's a very small difference, which affects not many chicks, because the boobies start their reproduction at 3 or 4 years of age. In terms of their aggressive capacity or aggression capacity, they are the same. We have tested this adults which were dominant or subordinate chicks have the same ability to defend their own nests. Thank you very much, Hugh. Okay, Anna is with us if you would like to ask the question.
¿Puede hablar, Ana?
Anna, you can speak now.
Creo que el sonido de Ana no funciona. Perdón, Henry, puede continuar.
Okay.
For some reason, Anna's sound is not working, so you may continue, Henry. Okay, so there's a last question in the chat, which says, Jorge Lopez asks, what are the ecological conditions which determine the expression of these submission or dominance behaviors? The conditions that affect the most this agonism between chicks and many other aspects of the reproduction of booby is El Niño phenomenon. And we are actually very far away from the Central Pacific. but the waters close to Mexico get a lot warmer during the Niño phenomenon. So when there is a Niño phenomenon, very few boobies reproduce with very small broods. That's why there is less opportunity, of course, of there being aggression between siblings. And of course, these nests the broods are less successful. But in each brood, in the Niño or not Niño conditions, the control of aggression is determined not exactly by El Niño phenomenon, but by the amount of food that adults can bring to the nest, which will, of course, be more reduced during such a phenomenon. But it is that amount which plays a role in the family and in not actually the conditions of the Niño phenomenon.
Bueno, no, muchas gracias, Hugh.
Okay, Hugh, thank you very much for your presentation. I think we all learned a lot about this, and it's your experience is absolutely amazing studying these booby populations. We will have more time later for a general discussion if you would like to talk about one of these specific talks. But for the time being, we are going to have a 5-minute break. And when we come back, we start with the rest of the talks. Thank you very much. If you want to continue asking Hugh some questions, you can ask him directly via the chat. Thank you very much. See you in 5 minutes.